Today we are going to talk about Snowball Merry Christmas Pixel blanket. Begin as you can, you can also do it after watching the video. The materials and tools we need to use are Snowball yarn, circular needle. This is an illustration of a Merry Christmas Pixel blanket. Here is the color of the snowball yarn used for weaving. Refer to this color number to select the corresponding color. A grid here represents a ball. A color with a few squares to represent that color need a few balls. Like this row 10. First need 2 orange balls. Change to bright red. Weave 8 balls. Switch to orange. Knit 3. Switch to bright red. Weave 9. Change it to black. Knit 1. Change to milky white and knit 5. And so on. Merry Christmas Pixel blanket is double-sided. Same pattern on the right side and wrong side. A row needs to be woven twice. The top half of the row from right to left look at the diagram with the wrong side. The bottom half of the row looks at the diagram from left to right, within the right side. You may encounter the following situations when changing colors. Color blocks are lined up and down. The color moves one space to the right. The color moves to the right by multiple spaces. Color shift to the left. Reserve yarn segments according to color blocks. Continuing cast on. The starting row is the upper half of the first row. Let's start weaving the second half of the first row. The needle on the right hand has no coil. No knitting for the first stitch. Just pick it up on the right needle. Now there are 2 balls on the needle. Each time, the yarn is wrapped on the connecting yarn that has not been used. Keep knitting. Finish all the coils on the left needle. The entire blanket is woven using the knit. The top half of the row looks at the diagram from right to left. Finish all the loops on the left needle. Turn up the knitting. The ring needle is folded over, and this yarn is resting on the needle like this. Take the yarn tip off and put it on the outside. Take a look. That means we've only woven half of the row 2. Now weave the bottom half of the row 2. Look at the diagram from left to right. Don't knit the first stitch. Move it to the right. The second stitch begins to make the knit. Finish knitting all the coils. There are also 2 rows over here. That means we've completed the 2 sides of the row 2. Turn up the knitting. The ring needle is folded over. Observation diagram. The author starts with the addition of other colors of yarn. The top half of the row looks at the diagram from right to left. Be sure to note that the number of balls corresponds to the number of cells, not the number of coils. This is bright red. Trim the length of the yarn. Bake the yarn ends with a lighter. This will join the yarn together. Each time we bake the yarn with a lighter to prevent it from unraveling. So you have a bright red ball. In bright red, knit 11 balls. This is black. This connection yarn is too short. Cut this ball off. Connect with long jointing yarn and bright red. Tie a knot in the connecting yarn that has been woven in bright red. This connects the black yarn. Weave 9 balls with black yarn. Change milky white. It's milky white. Use milky white yarn and black yarn for connection. Tie a knot in the black already woven connecting yarn. Weave 3 milky white balls. Change the black. Connect on milky white. Weave a black ball. Change to bright red. Tie a knot in the black yarn. Weave 4 bright red balls. This is the color change for the first 31 needles of row 3. For the rest, continue weaving as illustrated. Turn the fabric up. Fold the loop needle in half. The bottom half of the row 3 looks at the diagram from left to right. Bring the yarn to the outside. Start with the second stitch and knit for bright red balls. Each time you weave the lower half row, align it with the color of the upper half row. Here is a black ball. Wrap this black yarn around the outside. Pull it out with the ball attached. Black yarn. Take the milky white yarn outside. Weave 3 milky white. Change the black yarn and knit 9 balls. Change the bright red yarn and knit 11 balls. Change the orange yarn and knit the balls. Look at the knitting. The colors of the top and bottom rows are aligned, and our S and WS colors are the same. Turn it up. Turn the circular needle over. There's a lot of yarn here. Just sort the yarn out. Don't let it tangle. Observation diagram. Bright red and the three are up and down color swaps. That's the first case. Color blocks aligned up and down. Just take the yarn and knit it. Bring the bright red yarn to the outside. Be sure to pull the ball out in one piece and knit it. The two balls are lined up and down colors. Up-down color change is the easiest, just knit it. Weave 8 bright red balls. Observation diagram. The black ball moves 3 spaces to the right. This is the third case. Move multiple squares to the right. As this time, you can't pull the yarn over to knit, you need to cut the yarn. The all-3 and R4 cannot be woven with the same yarn. The black and the R5 has also moved 4 spaces to the right, and the yarn needs to be cut. So the black and the R4 only need 7 squares. Only set aside enough yarn to knit the row. Weave 7 balls in the S of the row. Weave 7 balls in WS of the row. Leave 1 ball at the beginning and 1 at the end. That's a total of 16 balls. We just have to count 16 balls of yarn. Connect the black yarn to the bright red yarn. Tie a knot in the bright red already woven connecting yarn. Weave 7 black balls. Put the end of a thread on the opposite side. Change to bright red. Observation diagram. Bright red has 4 cells. Then the next row, bright red, moves 4 spaces to the right. You need to cut the yarn. You can't use a single piece of yarn to knit. So only reserve pieces of yarn for the foregrid. For squares, knit twice. Add 2 more balls to the beginning and end. There are 10 balls in total. Connect the bright red with the black. Weave 4 bright red balls. Connect the black yarn to the bright red yarn. Weave a black ball. Change milky white. Is an alignment color change with the yarn directly around it. Weave for milky white balls. Change the black. Observation diagram. Black move one space to the left. This is the fourth case. The color moves to the left. If you pull the yarn directly into the knit, the balls will overlap with the milky white ones. So you need to cut the yarn. Moving one or more squares to the left requires cutting the yarn and join it. Leave a ball and cut the yarn. In this row, black, weave a ball. The next row is to align the color change and weave a ball. It can be woven with a single piece of yarn. In the next row, the black moves one to the left, and the yarn needs to be cut. So this piece of yarn needs to align and change colors, weaving to squares. Set aside 6 balls. Connect the black yarn to the milky white yarn. Bring the bright red yarn to the outside. Weave a black ball. And the next row is aligned with the color swap. The next row moves to the left again, and no yarn can be used. So reserve the number of balls used in this row in the next row. Connect the bright red yarn to the black yarn. On this demo of knitting in bright red, knit 3 balls. Turn up and fold the ring against each other. Arrange the end of the yarn. The bottom half of the row looks at the diagram from left to right. The first stitch is not woven. The second stitch begins to make the knit. Finish the bottom row by matching the color of the top row. The top half of row 5 looks at the diagram from right to left. The first stitch is not woven. The second stitch begins to knit to orange balls. Bright red up and down color change. Wrap the yarn and weave 4 balls. Change the black. The black has moved 4 spaces to the right. It's here. Need to rewire yarn for braiding. This is the piece of yarn that was just left in just finished. The black of the next row has moved the spaces to the right and cannot use the same yarn with this row. You only need to reserve the number of balls woven in the row. 7 squares, you need to use 16 balls. Connect the black yarn to the bright red yarn. With 7 black balls. Change to bright red. The bright red also moved for spaces to the right. The next row also moves to the right and cannot be braided with a single piece of yarn. Here you only need to reserve the yarn section of the knitting row. 5 squares, 12 balls are needed. Connect with black yarn. Weave 5 bright red balls. Change to orange. There are 2 orange grill in this row. The next row moves to the right, not using a single piece of yarn. Reserve only the yarn segments for this row. To squares, you need to use 6 balls. Connect the orange yarn to the bright red yarn. Weave a black ball. Weave 5 milky white. Black yarn change. Switch colors up and down. Weave 1. Pull the yarn straight through to knit. Change to bright red. Align up and down to change colors. Pull yarn canting. Turn up and fold the loop needle in half. The bottom half of the row looks at the diagram from left to right. Finish the bottom row by matching the color of the top row. This is what row 5 look like. Let me summarize a couple of ways to change colors. When the colors are lined up and down, round the yarn, knit. When the color moves one space to the right, you need to wrap the changing yarn around the original yarn and then continue weaving. When the color moves to the right, the yarn needs to be cut and rejoined. When the color moves one or more squares to the left, the yarn needs to be cut and rejoined.